Good afternoon. My name is Cody, and I am the inventor and founder of C-Lash, a lash specifically made for people who haven't got their own lashes. People who lost their lashes through cancer treatment or through alopecia or trichotillomania. I've actually only just managed to say that word, or any other disease that affects your natural lashes. And so what I'd like to say is, life never works out quite the way you want it to. And when I found out a few weeks ago that I was going to be speaking today, I knew today was International Women's Day, and I knew that the theme for this year is Balance for Better. So I decided that I wanted to say something about Balance for Better and gender inequality, because I'm from Zimbabwe, and in our country, gender inequality has been a thing. And coming over here in 2004, I did find things were a bit different. So for me, it was something that I really wanted to touch on. But I'm also going to talk about myself a little bit and then about my company. So when I found out that I'll be talking about gender inequality, the first person that I thought to speak to was Anna, my friend sitting in the audience. Anybody who knows Anna knows that she's passionate about gender equality, so she was the obvious choice. So I called Anna and I went to her house, and as I was sitting across from her, while she was eating dinner and we were talking about gender inequality, I realized how much I didn't know about this topic. So in a panic, I rushed home and I read every book that I could put my hands on. I read every statistic that I could find and everything out there. And I did a 30-slide PowerPoint presentation, and I was going to give you a speech that was going to move mountains, that was going to change the world, and to have you all bending your brows and and then I stopped. And then I realized, on Wednesday, I went to London. Now, I'd gone to London for a photo shoot for the Good Housekeeping. And when I went to London, I thought I was the only person who was going to be in this photo shoot. I wasn't. I walked into a room and there were ladies from Pixie Wool, the two girls that started Pixie Wool. There was Trini from Trini and Susanna. There was the CEO from Unilever. All these people were people that I'd seen in magazines and read about, and these are women that I admired, that were my heroes. And I was in a room with them, and I was thinking, am I in the right room? Should I be here with them? And I had a massive case of imposter syndrome, and I felt like I should be leading their team. And it was only the way they treated me and how they spoke to me and how they interacted with me that made me walk in with my head bowed and my shoulders low in the beginning of the day, to walking out with my head held high and thinking, I belong here, I'm one of them. And that got me thinking, I have no business teaching you about gender equality or about balancing for better if I myself do not know how to do that. Now, I'm a mother and I've got kids. I have 2 boys. If I can walk into a room and be intimidated by my peers, how do I teach my children how to be balancing for better? So for me, I'm not going to teach you anything about balancing for better. All I'm saying is, can we look at ourselves, because we are teaching the next generation. Are our kids prepared? Because I grew up learning, not from what my parents taught me, but from watching them. The things that I grew up learning are the person that I've become today. Are we equipping ourselves, our sons and our daughters, for the brave new world that they're marching into? Because we do not leave the world to our children. We borrow it from them. So we owe ourselves that much. And that got me thinking. Last month, when my lashes launched, Daily Mail did a story, and I was so excited, and I sent the clip to my parents back home in Zimbabwe. And my dad called me, and he was congratulating me, because my mom and dad are my biggest cheerleaders, and they've known that I've been trying to get my product to market since 2015. So my dad called me, and he was congratulating me, and he was just saying, it's like how well I'd done. But one thing that he said touched me. He said to me, you know, of all my children, you're the one that I least expected to be looking after me. And I now realize that the things that I used to try and beat out of you are the traits that have made you get to this point. Now, let me make a disclaimer right now. I grew up in a loving home. My parents loved me. We were poor, but what we lacked in money, we made up for in love. But there are things that our kids do, and there are things that we say because we're upset or because we want to correct them. And the things that my dad used to say was talking about when he said the things that he tried to beat out of you. They're the names that they used to call me growing up. Now, they used to call me a lot of nice names, but it's the negative names that we call our kids that they remember. For me, I remember Muribera. Muribera means the rebel. I remember Dolfo. Dolfo means somebody who's not very smart. I remember my Thatcher. My mouth used to run away with me, so they used to call me Margaret Thatcher. And I remember lazy, because I used to love reading, so I would forgo my chores and I used to sit and read. And my love for reading and having my head in the cloud all the time, and a program on telly called Carson's Law made me fall in love with being a lawyer. So from the age of about 8, I really wanted to become a lawyer. But as a girl child in Africa, I knew the opportunities that I had were not as equal as those of my male counterparts. So having worked hard and actually getting 7 GCSEs, even though I wasn't very bright, I made the choice not to go and do my A-levels. Why? 2 reasons. The first one, I knew that my parents did not have money. So for me, I needed to be sure that I could pass before I took that money. And the second is, I just didn't believe that I was smart enough to do it. So I made the decision that I was going to go and find a job and look after my siblings instead. So I left and I went to work. In 2004, I came to the UK. Life got in the way. I forgot my dream of becoming a lawyer. In 2012, I joined a company called Fleet Operations. The company is owned by a remarkable man called Ross Jackson. While talking to Ross Jackson, he found out of my dream to be a lawyer. And he said to me, "Why don't you go and do law?" And I said, "Well, I don't have A-levels." And he says, "Do you know that we've got a program within the company? You can do MVQs. And if you do up to level 3, you can go into uni." So that's what I did. I worked really hard. I finished my MVQs in 12 months instead of 18. Immediately applied to go to university. I got an email from Manchester Metropolitan inviting me for an interview. The day that I was supposed to go for an interview was the 11th of August, 2014. Now, that is the day that I will always remember. In fact, I have made that my 2nd birthday. It was the day that Cody the girl became Cody the woman. Because a month before, I had found a lump in my right breast. I'd gone to the doctors and I'd been sent for a biopsy. When the results were actually supposed to be 10 days later. The 10th day was the 11th of August, 2014. The same day that I had my interview. Now, my interview was at 6 o'clock in the evening. My biopsy result was at 3. But from the day that I had my biopsy to the 11th, to the day that I was supposed to get my results, I managed to convince myself that I couldn't possibly have cancer. You know, I told myself that I was too black, I was too skinny, I was too active, I was too young. I couldn't have cancer. So I actually believed it so much so that when I went for my results, not only did I not tell anybody that I was going for my results, I did not take anybody with me to drive me to and from, and I did not cancel my interview at MMU. I got in and I was told the news that nobody wanted to hear. And I remember the surprise on the nurse and the doctor's face when I, instead of sitting down and discussing my treatment plan, I gathered my things and I went into my car. I wasn't going to sit and listen to my treatment plan that day. I had an interview that I needed to attend. So I drove from Crewe, Leighton Hospital, to Manchester Metropolitan. At no point in that whole time did I have a wobble. At no point did my lip tremble. I walked into that interview. The first one was a group interview. The second one was a one-on-one interview. And the interviews were going well. You can tell when an interview is going well. And I knew I was on a roll until the final question. The lady said to me, "Is there anything that you know that will affect your study at the college?" Now, this would have been a question that would have been asked to any of the people that came for the interview that day. It was a generic question. For me, the answer was different because my answer was yes. I found out that day at 3 o'clock that I had cancer. And it was only when the lady asked me why I had made the decision to come that it actually dawned on me why I'd done what I'd done. And this is what I said to her. I said, for years I have wanted to be a lawyer. And today I have found news that can probably derail my dream. For me, cancer is only ever going to be a chapter in my life. It's not a book in my life. What I'm doing right now is going to determine the person that I'm going to be. So I am not going to let a chapter of my life rewrite the book of my life. So if it's all the same to you, I would like to follow my dream. I walked out thinking that I'd blown my chances, only to get an email 3 days later to say, we thought you could use some good news, and we've decided to offer you a place. And that was a moment for me. I did start my studies, but when treatment came round, I had to drop out, and that was hard. But I've always said, life comes with no guarantees. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So I decided that I was going to leave and to have my treatment. I couldn't leave work because I had 2 boys to look after. I couldn't afford to sit at home and look after and feel sorry for myself because my whole family was in Africa. So I had very little support system around me. So I still had to be Cody the mother, and I still had to go out and work. At that time, I had already decided that I was going to fight cancer on my own terms. So I was never going to go into work and allow my condition to affect how people treated me or to affect my job. So I decided to hide the fact that I had cancer. So I would wear wigs and I would wear makeup and I would try to hide. In fact, I started having a war cry, and my war cry was lipstick and heels. I would wake up every single morning, get dressed up. On days when I was going for chemotherapy, I'd dress up as if I was going to a wedding, sequins and feathers and everything. And that's what I used to do. And people used to call me the chemotherapy celebrity because people used to actually take pictures with me. And that's how. But for me, it was a small thing, but for me, it took away focus from the pain. Anybody who's going through chemo knows that sometimes, because you're on steroids, you can't escape the pain with sleep. You're awake most of the time. And for me, sometimes it felt like I had 1,000 men with little hammers just hammering away in my bones, and I couldn't escape that pain. So me focusing on what I was going to wear that day, the next day, and worrying about whether my shoes were going to match my handbags or my hair was going to be blue or purple, took away from that for a moment. The one thing that I then realized was I could hide my missing hair, I could hide my missing eyebrows, but I could not hide my missing lashes. I found out when I tried to wear false lashes that lashes rest on your existing lashes. Once you haven't got anything for the lashes to rest on, it becomes really, really difficult. So I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna make a lash. Now, I'd never run a company before. I knew nothing about bringing a new product to market. And if I had known, I wouldn't have started. Because I started C-Lash in 2015. And it's been quite a journey because for me, there was, the first thing was I thought something so obvious, something so simple, surely somebody would have done this. And it turned out that nobody had done it. And then it came to things like prototyping. I'd never even heard of the word before. Patenting, I didn't even have money to do that. Trademarking, nobody even told me that you needed to protect a name. And so I went and I did all these things, and it was hard. Cut the story short, after I'd done all these things, I started knocking on doors. And I had so many doors slammed in my face. But I had just beat cancer. So who cares if you did not believe in my idea? I believed it, and that was good enough. So I kept knocking on doors even though people used to say no. People used to say things like, the fact that it's not here right now means that it's not needed. Or you're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. I didn't know anything about market research because I'd never done that. When it came to borrowing money, nobody wanted to lend me money. Guess who couldn't write a business plan? This one. My school had taught me how to write a CV, but never how to start my own business. So I didn't know anything about case projections, so nobody would lend me any money. So I went to my friends and family, and I played the cancer card, and I got them to give me some money. I managed to get a prototype, and I managed to get out there and trademark my idea and everything. And eventually, knocking on doors, both came and they said they wanted to talk to me about my lashes. I walked into booths and I gave them the worst pitch in history. I'd never pitched an idea before. The only thing that saved me that day was I was actually wearing a prototype, and they didn't realize that the lashes that I had were not my own because I didn't have any. And they said that they wanted to work with me. Then it came to the idea of, if we gave you an order, how are you going to supply it? I had all of 63 pounds in my account. So I had to go away, and I was trying to start a crowdfunding strategy to put that together. And then they called me back and they said, we would like you to speak to a company that we've worked with for a while and we trust. And that company is ILO. And that was in 2016. For me, I went from that meeting with ILO thinking, this is done. By the end of the week, we'll be selling the lashes. It took us until on Monday this week for my lashes to be launched in booths. But we've finally done it. So for anybody out there who's going through something, wants to start something, who's got something that they're trying to do, I don't know how to start a business. I know how not to start a business because I know 1,000 ways to fail. Oh, I fell down 1,000 times, but I stood up 1,001 times. And the last time I kept standing. So do what's necessary, and then do what's possible, and then walk into the impossible. Thank you.